Our next presentation deals with launching new products. Our speaker is Erin Russeck, Executive VP, Corporate Strategy and Innovation for AMC Global. Erin, the podium is yours.
Thank you, John. Hello, thank you all for joining me today. As John said, my name is Erin Russeck, and I'm from AMC Global. AMC is a full-service market research consultancy with expertise in the product launch space. Over the past 18 months or so, I've had the pleasure of working hand in hand with a company called Drinkworks to develop and execute a research plan for their new-to-world product launch. We consider this to be a best-in-class example of research conducted in a very small test market, and today we'd love to share our case study with you. I'll give you some background about Drinkworks, I'll tell you a little bit about our research plan, and of course I'll share some results that have helped to shape Drinkworks' business. I'll note that my awesome Drinkworks client, Jessica Bolger, wasn't able to join me in presenting today. She actually had another speaking engagement, but I do believe she's listening in, so I'll try to do our work justice. Okay, so first let's take a step back and talk a little bit about product launch in general. One thing we've all heard about new product launch is the dismal failure statistics. This one, that of the 30,000 new consumer products that are launched every year, up to 95% fail, recently appeared in Harvard Business Review. All of these statistics point to the same conclusion. Launching a new product is an extremely difficult task. Given the risk associated with product launch, test markets, or a test and learn strategy, continues to gain popularity. This can mean launching a product into a single retailer, region, or even only a handful of stores. In fact, many larger manufacturers have established separate business units within their organizations with the objective of bringing new-to-world innovation to market on a smaller scale. However, the objectives that companies have for their test markets can differ fairly dramatically. Some companies use test markets to shorten or even skip pre-launch stage gate process. Others use a more typical innovation process, but leverage the test market to mitigate risk as they build wider distribution. In these cases, test markets can actually function as a disaster check. The idea of if a product is going to fail, let's get it into market and fail fast. However, when it's done right, test markets should be much more than a disaster check. Test markets require a significant investment, and thus the goal should be to take a strong product to market and make it better. Companies like Drinkworks know that when a test market is backed by a robust research plan, there are a lot of advantages. First, they allow us to get to market faster and optimize our products in a more realistic and accurate way. So rather than optimizing one element of the product at a time, the concept, the product, the package, the price, test markets afford us the opportunity to learn about products as consumers actually experience them in a holistic way. Further, test markets can provide insights about these real products from real consumers in real moments. We're not placing perfect prototypes with hand-picked consumers. Rather, consumers are finding the product on their own, investing their own money, and using the product as part of their typical routine. Next, test markets also give us the ability to take into account external factors that are difficult to simulate in a pre-launch testing environment, such as the impact of larger scale production, shipping, product aging, weather, or temperature changes. Consumer insights gathered under more realistic circumstances will naturally give us a more accurate understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of our new products, as well as clarity on what to do next. For example, while pre-launch pricing research can provide guidance on pricing strategy, the best way to determine consumers' reaction to price is for them to have the opportunity to buy the product with their own money from a competitive shelf. Trial rates and assessment of barriers at shelf can tell us whether the price point truly makes sense in the market. Similarly, placing consumers with a new package during pre-launch testing may not give us the full picture of pack performance. The best way to understand the durability of a package is to measure consumer reaction after the package has moved through production to distribution channels, onto store shelves, and then is tossed into consumer shopping carts. This learning can help us do a better job of setting expectations for product performance within our organizations and help us to arm the sales force with a retailer sell-in story to help build distribution. After all, test markets are not only reducing the manufacturer risk, but also the risk to their retailer partners. So what is Drinkworks? In 2017, In-Bev and Keurig created a joint venture anchored in the challenge to deliver an at-home alcohol system that would deliver high-quality cocktails without all the work. At that time, both Keurig and ABI were coming off innovation programs that ultimately proved non-sustainable. So Keurig had planned to launch Keurig Cold, a pod-based carbonated soft drink platform, in a big way. They had an initial production order of 2 million appliances and assumed a nationwide launch from the beginning. At that same time, AB InBev was pushing DraftMark, its draft beer appliance, through existing channels of beverage wholesalers and distributions without really understanding the full complexity of selling appliances. While these products were ultimately discontinued, the companies learned a lot from these experiences. And so they came together and formed Drinkworks with an objective of using a different way of creating and launching a disruptive product to the market. They wanted to start small. Put the product out into market, not perfectly finished, not completely optimized, and learn. Specifically, Nathaniel Davis, who's Drinkworks CEO, set out to build a company committed to making the user the hero, ensuring that consumer testing, insights, and data would have a seat at the table for each and every decision that Drinkworks made. So in November 2018, the Drinkworks Home Bar was launched into its first test market. With less than 500 machines, one major retail partner, and 15 cocktails, they hit shelves in St. Louis, Missouri. What the Drinkworks engineers invented was a pod-based system that uses technology, chilling, and carbonation to prepare quality cocktails at the touch of a button. Let's check it out.
This is a pod. It's also a cocktail with top-shelf ingredients. Cooled to just the right temperature with the perfect amount of bubbles. Meet Drinkworks by Keurig. A new way to elevate. Dinner with family. Late nights with friends. Or cozy evenings in. Bar quality cocktails, freshly made, on demand.
Okay, so I think you'll agree that the product was pretty cool. So Drinkworks had this product, and they knew that they wanted to use test market insights. So what came next was developing the right research plan. However, there was a big and somewhat obvious challenge. They only had a few machines to sell, but we needed to deliver big insights. This tiny test market was going to determine how and what Drinkworks would launch as they set to expand to new cities just a few months later. But with less than 500 potential new consumers, finding them was going to be like searching for a needle in a haystack. However, this wasn't a concept test anymore. Drinkworks was done with the hypothetical and didn't want to look at top 2-box purchase intent scores. These were real machines in real markets, and their brand was out there for the very first time. This is where AMC stepped in and helped Drinkworks craft a research plan that would get the real insights they needed from the right consumers. AMC's experience in the launch phase was really critical to Drinkworks at this moment. For some organizations, test and learn can also mean a lean research plan. For Drinkworks, the plan was always to launch small but learn big. Research was never planned to simply check a box. Simply achieving a strong consumer satisfaction score wasn't going to make the organization content and move on. Instead, Drinkworks started under the assumption that everything was wrong at every step and sought to validate everything. Drinkworks was aware that a blind spot in the research could mean flawed decision-making. Therefore, we designed this research plan that would allow us to see the launch from all possible angles. The plan included the right balance of quantitative and qualitative insights. We were making recommendations to senior leadership who were acting on these recommendations fast. And we needed to instill the confidence via both the rigor of quant research plus qualitative insights that could help bring that consumer story to life. We also used a mix of traditional and unique proprietary methodologies to allow us to understand the launch from all possible perspectives. We wanted to understand what was working well and identify the areas for optimization. While we used some cool and unique methodologies, it was really this combination of insights that gave the research plan its power. We were able to look at the launch from these different angles and craft a cohesive story. So this included research that looked at the launch from a broad market level perspective. We wanted to understand awareness and how awareness and interest was growing in the market, as well as conducted research that would allow us to get to those specifics. So for example, we conducted a study to understand the impact of sampling and demonstrations among those exposed to those activities. I'll be talking a little bit about the various methodologies that we use today. I'll add that the research plan was intended to be iterative. The idea was to learn from the initial test market, but then validate those learnings and continue the optimization process in each expansion market. In short, we set out to learn what to change, make the change, then test the change. And so, spoiler alert, there is no conclusion to this research. In fact, it continues today in these expansion markets. Okay, so now I thought I'd take you through a few of the research studies that we executed relatively briefly. First, we started broad. We wanted to understand the impact that the new product was making in the test market as a whole. So we planned and executed an awareness, usage, and image tracking program. We recruited a broad sample of target consumers in the market in order to begin to understand the consumer journey. First, was the brand having success in building awareness in the initial market? While marketing spend was somewhat limited, there were a number of social media and PR activities happening in order to create buzz about Drinkworks. Drinkworks also had the benefit of being in ABI's backyard, so in St. Louis, Missouri. So we wanted to know, was that helping or having an impact? But beyond awareness, we wanted to understand whether purchase interest was developing, and now we had a real product in a real market. We wanted to understand what the barriers were to purchase. So as consumers were becoming organically aware of the new product, what did they see as the benefits and which benefits resonated most? And on the flip side, what were the points of confusion or friction that would prevent them from purchasing? Drinkworks also had a desire to better understand the impact and effectiveness of sampling and demonstration efforts. From the beginning, there was a strong hypothesis that sampling and demos would be a critical component of the marketing plan in driving purchase. This was a disruptive innovation at a relatively high price point, and it was pretty reasonable that consumers would want to try it before they buy it. Drinkworks sought to confirm this hypothesis as well as better understand the role of sampling. So specifically, we set out to understand first the profile of consumers who were being reached by sampling efforts. Who were they in terms of demographics? What was their alcoholic beverage category purchase history? In short, we were trying to understand whether we were reaching our target with our efforts. We also wanted to understand the conversion rate. Do those who are exposed to demos and sampling ultimately go on to purchase a Drinkworks home bar machine? And what would they say the drivers and barriers to purchase were? And we wanted to double click on the strengths and weaknesses of the sampling program. So what were the elements or tactics that had the greatest impact on consumer conversion? Remember, our goal was to optimize for the next market. So we needed to determine how to increase the effectiveness of the program moving forward. In order to execute this study, we used AMC Global's proprietary sample track method to recruit a quantitative base size of consumers who were exposed to sampling and demos in the market, and then we followed up with them over time. So we first talked to them within the first day or so of their exposure and understood who they were and what that experience was like. We also followed up with these very same consumers after 4 to 6 weeks to understand if they had taken any further steps or purchased a Drinkworks machine. The results were mixed. So as we expected, sampling was an important step in the purchase journey. Consumers had questions about taste, and sampling was a helpful way to overcome that. However, sampling is incredibly expensive and difficult to scale, and the research pointed to ways that sampling and demos could be working harder for Drinkworks. Specifically, the current retailer sampling program was not reaching Drinkworks' relatively niche target, and a key barrier to purchase for many consumers was that the product was simply not relevant to them. Based on the results of this research, Drinkworks made some changes to its sampling program, and we're currently testing more grassroots strategies to sampling, so smaller sampling efforts that are more directed to the target. But beyond looking at the test market in this broad way to understand awareness and which strategies are working best to drive awareness and purchase for this new machine, Drinkworks wanted to understand some key questions about their actual buyers. As I've said, a core principle of the organization was to make the user the hero. Therefore, they wanted to talk to their users and really understand what their experiences were like. Some questions that we had for our users were, who were they? How did they become aware? Why did they buy? How does the setup process go? What are their first experiences with the product? Are they continuing to buy and use pods? And on which usage occasions? So we started with some qualitative methods to give us an early in-depth look at users and their experiences with the product. First, VIPs within the ABI community were given the opportunity to purchase a product at a discounted rate. Though these employees weren't exactly completely objective consumers, we wanted to take the opportunity to learn about the product from the first people to have them in their homes. In exchange for that discounted rate on the product, these consumers agreed to participate in an online qualitative bulletin board throughout the first few weeks with the machine. Additionally, we supplemented this work with shop-alongs and ethnographies with likely buyers of the machine. We recruited consumers who met the Drinkworks target criteria and to express commitment to buying the product. We asked them if we could tag along as they purchased the product, brought it home, set it up, and used it for the first time. These qualitative insights were very helpful for us to get depth around the purchase and usage experience. However, Drinkworks needed robust, reliable results among real purchasers that they could use to shape their business. This is where we recommended AMC's PFU, or Purchaser Follow-Up Methodology. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth about PFU. While all of these research programs came together to really tell a complete story, PFU we would call the cornerstone of the launch toolkit. So here's how it works. PFU leverages our response cache proprietary method for recruiting and incenting product purchasers for participating in research. So specifically, AMC creates survey invitations which are placed on or in product packages during production, distribution, or even in stores once new products hit shelves. In this case, we created survey invitation which was placed with the Quick Start Guide into Drinkworks home bar boxes during production prior to these very first machines being shipped out to stores. Consumers discover the Drinkworks home bar on their own. They purchase it with their own money. It's a completely organic purchase experience. When they get the product home and go to set it up, they find our survey invitation, which invites them to participate in a multi-phase research study. We use a response cash card or a prepaid cash card as the incentive for participating in the study, and we leverage a pretty significant incentive. This ensures a robust response and also a representative response to our survey. So we want people from all demographic segments, as well as those that are positive toward the product, negative toward the product, and everything in between. For Drinkworks, we conducted 3 phases of research. So phase 1 occurs immediately after purchase, setup, and initial usage. Here we learned who our buyers were, all the details about how they came to purchase the product. So how did they become aware, and what were those key drivers of their initial purchase, and what was their initial experience with the machine from setup through initial usage. Next, we followed up with these same consumers 6 weeks after purchase with our phase 2 survey. Here we wanted to understand what their short-term usage behavior looked like, how often were they using and on which occasions, and their satisfaction with the product so far. Finally, we followed up with them again after 6 months. The goal was to understand longer-term performance and behavior following extended exposure to the machine. And it worked. So with less than 500 machines in that initial test market in St. Louis, Missouri, we were able to recruit a quantitative base size of 180 Drinkworks purchasers into our research program. So definitely a significant portion of our purchasers became a part of our panel in responding to our surveys. So some of the key benefits of getting quantitative data instead of merely relying on sales data and qualitative feedback are obvious. But for Drinkworks, there were a few key benefits that made a big difference to their business. So first, the data was meaningful. It had come from real purchasers based on real moments. The product was simply too disruptive to rely on concept acceptors. We were creating a new need and a new occasion, and we really needed to see that play out firsthand in real life. Second, it was fast. For Drinkworks, waiting for insights to trickle in was not an option. They were making decisions every day, and they needed the learning to guide those decisions. For the Drinkworks product in particular, the data had to be longitudinal. These are shiny new objects. Talking to people just in the first few days doesn't tell us the whole story. So we needed to be able to see how the product performed both initially and how that was going to change their behavior moving forward. And finally, the data had to be interpreted in the right context. So Drinkworks needed a tool that was backed by robust normative data in order to, versus other actual new product launches. We were asking the leadership team to pivot on strategy, and we needed to be sure. I'll add one key benefit that isn't expressed here, but since the research has continued to be beneficial to the Drinkworks team, we did recruit this significant, sizable, valuable panel of users, and we continue to leverage them for both qualitative and quantitative research on an ongoing basis. So these very first users are continuing to help us with innovation research as we think about where the product will go in 2020 and beyond. Okay, so what did we learn? I'll give you a few highlights of some of the key insights that came from this very first research. First, we learned what was working well. So we were reaching Drinkworks' intended target. The product was reaching affluent consumers who drink frequently and socialize at home. Second, we determined that Drinkworks was buzzworthy. Social media and word of mouth were key in driving awareness among those who actually went on to buy the product, which was very exciting news for the Drinkworks team. Finally, the value proposition was coming through loud and clear. In an unaided and organic way, consumers were able to articulate the key benefits of the system and indicate how strongly those benefits were relevant to them. We didn't have to work hard for consumers to understand that this was a new, convenient way to bring cocktails to home occasions without the effort and mess of mixing drinks. However, we also learned what wasn't working and where action and optimization were needed. First, we found that setup was confusing and frustrating for consumers. In other words, the very first step in the consumer journey was not easy or convenient, and that wasn't going to work for Drinkworks, who came to market with a convenient proposition. The reality was that in an effort to get to market faster, Drinkworks had skipped UX testing on their Quick Start Guide, and it showed. Consumer frustration was heard in both the PFU study and in our ethnographic work. So within days of receiving the insights, we were able to take action and overhaul the Quick Start Guide, so the very next products that were shipped out had an updated Quick Start Guide. So these are some of the just basic changes that we made. First, we did a better job in establishing expectations about length of setup. So consumers were used to setting up Keurig coffee makers and had similar expectations for this machine. But because this was a little different, it yielded some frustration. So we were able to address that. Next, we added some instructions to clarify some of the more complex steps, like inserting the CO2 cartridge. We also synced written instructions with the on-machine prompts to make sure that the consumer wasn't going to get off track as they were setting up. And finally, we added some helpful hints about serving the drinks that would ultimately enhance the drinking experience. And at the end of the day, it worked. Given the beauty of the iterative research process that I've talked about, we were able to repeat this research and see the new Quick Start Guide in action in the first expansion market. And we actually cut the setup time in half with these changes and really eliminated that consumer frustration. So less tactical and far more important strategically, we also learned that Drinkworks had a value perception issue. While consumers were very excited about the Drinkworks system and satisfied with their drinks, value ratings were weak and slipping over time. Because of AMC's normative database, we were able to clearly show the Drinkworks leadership team that the action was needed here. But thankfully, we didn't just have to rely on data showing us that we had a problem. The PFU also digs deep into the why behind the what. So it allowed us to really understand what was contributing to our value issue and create a clear plan of action moving forward. So while all of these things were part of the issue, variety, drink size, price point, how consumers were actually using in-home, and the ongoing maintenance costs, they were all part of the value equation, but they weren't all created equal. So for expansion plans in both Florida in May and California in October, we were able to test a new pricing strategy, a new merchandiser setup in retail stores, and new messaging on pack. Also for 2020, we decided to prioritize adding more variety and larger drink sizes to Drinkworks portfolio, products that were originally further out on the Drinkworks roadmap. All of these decisions were delivered with the power of real data and the voice of the consumer for quick and actionable direction. So I just thought I would conclude with a few kind of key points as we think about test market research. Test and learn is a popular strategy for new product launch, but it doesn't guarantee success. Test markets require significant investment and risk and can be so much more than a disaster check. Test markets should be backed by a robust research plan that can help us guide optimization. So these are just a few tips for planning research in a test market environment. First, get real. Realism is the key benefit to test market research. Therefore, research plans should ensure that we're gathering insights from real consumers in real moments. If we don't capitalize on this key benefit, then we really aren't doing a good job with test market research. Next, we have to get creative. When launching a product into a small test market, traditional research methodologies such as online panels will often not be sufficient. Instead, we want to leverage creative tools and solutions that are designed for a test and learn environment and ensure robust and representative insights. Without unique tools like PFU, it really would have been impossible for Drinkworks to gather the insights that are currently driving its business. So one of the things that we say here at AMC about launch is that makes us different and approach launch a little differently is that we really see it as a unique phase of the product life cycle where unique insights are needed. We can't just shove more traditional or other types of methodologies into the launch space and expect to get the right insights. And finally, be prepared to pivot. The insights gained from test market research are only valuable if the organization is committed to acting on them, even if that means changing direction. Drinkworks' test market success can really be attributed to its commitment to act on the insights, and it's really actually remarkable. I've seen them do it again and again, and that is really why they are reaping the benefits. And that's all I have for you this afternoon, so I will throw it back to John to see if we have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Erin. That was really fascinating. I really learned a lot from that. A couple of questions that came in here. The first one, are there any limitations to the types of product categories that can benefit from your program?
I wouldn't say there are limitations. We've actually executed the methodology across many, many product categories. We have a huge database. We do a lot of work in CPG, so food and beverage, health and beauty, et cetera. Certainly appliances like Drinkworks is part of that as well. So it really runs the gamut. The methodology is, specific and proprietary, but we do have some flexibility about how we execute it. So we usually consider the product category and the price point, et cetera, when we're setting it up to make sure it's set up for success.
Okay. Another question, what pieces of the marketing plan were implemented in the test market? Was there a fully developed website?
Yes, so there is a fully developed website. It is drinkworks.com, so you can check it out yourself. So yeah, that was there. I mean, Drinkworks was really they had done pre-launch testing. This wasn't like a total prototype product that we launched into market. It was a strong product already, but the idea was to continue the optimization process once we hit market. Like I said, and then that initial test market beyond some social media and some PR events and sampling events, there wasn't a lot of marketing spend. So they were featured on local TV and some articles and magazines and newspapers, et cetera, but there wasn't like TV advertising and other specific advertising that's implemented now actually in expansion markets.
Okay, here's an interesting question. In what types of retail outlets can your new product tracking program be conducted?
So because the survey invitations go on or in product packages, retail outlet isn't actually a factor. So we can, conduct the research across outlets and channels, grocery, club, Walmart, Target, mass merchandisers, C-stores, department stores, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. We've actually even done this program in vending machines, for example.
Okay. Here's a question that I had, Erin. Have you used this type of program to track new product launches outside of the United States? After all, your name is AMC Global, right?
That's right. Yep. PFU is a global methodology. The response cash cards that we leverage for the research are automatically convert into local currency all over the world. So, yeah, we have conducted this type of research all over the globe.
Okay, well, that's all the questions we had. Thank you, Erin. That was really, really very interesting. I enjoyed that, and good job.
Thank
Okay,
you.
for more information, you can follow up with Erin. Her email is on the screen, erusseck@amcglobal.com.